Dollars, welcome back to our channel. This is Drug Chronicles. Today we're going to discuss the negative impacts of some air freshness we breathe in. Everybody loves the smell of a good apartment. Everybody loves that sweet scent. But some of this air freshness we have on the market possesses certain health threats to us. And we're going to have a doctor with us in the house today. We have Jonathan to help us understand, to guide us that the next time you go out there to buy an air freshener, the things you're supposed to look out for, and how you'll be able to use them in your apartment for them not to have any negative impact on your health. Jonathan, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Right, so do you have an air freshener in your room?
Yes, I do.
You love to buy them?
I love those in my room.
Okay. And what do you see before you buy them? Or what do you check out before you buy them?
Okay, so first of all, to talk about air freshness, or I would like for us to consider as human beings,
okay,
and our makeup and our physiology as human beings,
okay,
as we put it in the medical terms.
Okay.
When it comes to the sense of smell,
yeah,
or our ability to smell things, or to take the sense of smell,
yeah,
evolution has it that the sense of smell is the first sense that developed in humans.
wow.
So whenever it comes to smelling things, or when it comes to scents, it is very important for you to have an environment that is appealing to people, because anytime someone approaches you,
yeah,
anytime someone gets close to you, the first thing that announces you to the person is your scent. It's your scent.
Okay.
Right. So your scent, your scent or the smell around you is very important.
Okay.
So for us as human beings, our dwelling places or wherever we want to live,
yeah,
it is important for us to keep that place with a good scent. It's
okay,
important for us to have good scent in the place.
Rooms, yeah.
So to get to your question about what I look out for, first of all, the thing must smell nice.
Okay, the nice aroma.
Yes.
Nice one. Nice.
It must smell nice,
okay,
generally.
Yeah.
But not everything good is good,
okay,
in itself,
yeah,
okay? Even for us as doctors, the medicines that we use, for every medicine, we know about the side effects that come with every medicine.
Oh, wow.
Not every medicine is good for us.
Okay.
So we use the medicines cautiously, knowing that there can be some adverse effects,
okay,
even though we are using them for a specific purpose.
all right.
The same applies to the use of air freshness.
Okay.
Right. So for every air freshener, though it is good for our environment, it is good for our space, it is good to welcome people into our space and to keep people attached or to us.
Yeah.
There are some adverse effects that comes with using air freshness.
Okay.
Okay. And there are some chemical components that enrich the air freshness that, when used in excess or when out of proportion, can be harmful to us.
Okay.
Right. So to come to your question about what I look out for,
yeah,
I make sure that the elements in the air freshener is mostly natural.
okay, natural.
Yes.
Okay.
They must be mostly natural components, not things that are synthesized
okay,
in the lab or in factories or in any other spaces.
As you were saying, you said that if you want to go buy an air freshener, you make sure that they have a natural feel.
Yes.
What are some of the other things that you don't want to see inside the air freshener you buy?
Okay, so when it comes to chemicals that I wouldn't want to see in my air freshener,
yeah,
in the general term, okay, there is what is called or known as the volatile organic compounds.
Volatile organic compounds.
Yes, yeah, which is a broad term that covers a number of chemical compounds or chemical components that are kept in certain air fresheners that may be harmful to our health.
Okay.
And the key word here is may.
May. Okay.
That's when it is used out of proportion,
okay,
or it is used beyond a certain amount.
Yeah.
Okay. In medical terms, okay, we define a drug as something that may be poisonous or may bring health.
Okay.
So everything we take, every medicine we take is a potential poison.
Okay.
Every medicine we take is also a potential healing material.
Okay.
So based on the dosage or the proportion of that medicine that you take, it may be harmful. So when it comes to substances that I wouldn't want to see or I wouldn't expect to be in excess in my air freshener, an example is the common formaldehyde, okay? That is popularly known as formalin. When you go to, yes, formalin.
I was thinking formalin is mostly used for dead bodies.
Yes, exactly. I was coming to that.
Okay.
So in preservation of dead bodies, what we normally use is the formalin, okay? We don't want the dead bodies to decay. And it should tell you how strong it is, okay? When someone dies, the natural process or the natural path that the body should follow is to decay and then to become part of the earth. But when you use formalin, it is able to stop that process. It should tell you how strong or how potent formalin is. And some of our air fresheners that we use in our home contain this very strong chemical compound.
Wow.
And when we use or when we are exposed to them in excess, it can be very harmful to our health. Another example is a compound like benzene. Benzene, yes. They are aromatic compounds. When you study chemistry and their makeup, okay, they are not substances that we should be exposed to on a daily basis. So when you are exposed to them in excess, when you are exposed to them beyond proportion, they can be very harmful to our health. Okay,
so speaking about the exposure to it, does it mean that before you can use an air freshener in the room needs to be ventilated to some extent?
Very much so, sir. Very much. Yes.
So we have places that people, you know, they close the doors, AC is on, they don't want the air to go out, and the air freshener is also in there. Does that speed up, you know, the negative impact on our health to some extent?
Yes. The answer is a very big yes.
Okay. We also have people that use air fresheners in their home. They enter their vehicle, is in there. They get to their office, is in there also. So let's say throughout the day, they are exposed to different set of air fresheners. What can they do? Or what must they do so that that impact will not affect them? The exposure, long exposure, will not affect them.
Okay. To answer that, I will say that the best form of air freshener is a natural air or natural ventilation.
Okay.
So no matter what, or no matter the amount of air fresheners you decide to use or the brands of air fresheners you decide to use, you should make sure that you have enough ventilation reaching your room.
Okay.
There should be adequate exposure for enough air, for natural air, to be able to reach or to enter your space. That is the best form of air freshener. Okay. Yes, sir.
All right. Do we have certain class of people who are, you know, they are likely to fall victims to, you know, exposure of air fresheners? People who are, maybe I'm tempted to use the word allergy. They are allergic to air fresheners, certain class of people, and they must not use air fresheners to some extent, or they need to limit the way they use air fresheners.
Very, very true, sir. There are certain groups of people that with certain chemicals that we may be exposed to that may be relatively useful to us, for them, because of their body or certain underlying medical conditions, exposure to such chemicals may be very, very, very harmful to them. Example is people with certain known allergic conditions. For example, a very common example is asthma. Or another example, someone with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, commonly known. When people with, what happens in these people is that your respiratory system, okay, when you are taking in air, is supposed to naturally expand and then relax, so that air goes in
and out.
Yes, oxygen exchange takes place and then the air goes out. The excess carbon dioxide goes out. But with these people, their respiratory system doesn't dilate naturally like it's supposed to. With certain allergens, their body is forced to react to them, and then the resultant effect is that their airways close.
Inflammation.
Yes, there's inflammation, and then their airways close. So with that, that's when they begin to have symptoms like the wheezing. You realize that they will begin to have difficulties breathing because their airway is narrowing. So people like that with long-term exposures to certain chemicals, it can be very, very, very harmful to them. People with certain underlying medical conditions like that, like the two I mentioned, it can be very harmful to them. Also, children especially, children especially under 5 years, with exposure, in our safety system, safety standards when it comes to health, we advise or we admonish people to keep certain chemicals beyond the reach of children, preferably at on a height, okay, so that children are not able to reach it. When children are exposed to some chemicals like this, a child will find something beautiful, air freshener, it looks nice to him. So what does he do? He takes it, drinks it, forgetting that or not knowing that there are some chemicals in it that can harm him. So children must be kept far from some of these chemicals. Another group of people that should be kept far from exposure, long-term exposure to some of these chemicals are the pregnant women. Okay. You know that a pregnant woman is not just one human being. There are actually two. And especially within the first trimester. You know, pregnant women have to go through 3 different trimesters. Okay. So in the first trimester especially, exposure to some chemicals which we call can cause certain mutations, with a growing fetus. So a few days ago, just yesterday, I was in the consulting room when a referral came to me, and then we took a scan of the woman's baby, and then the baby didn't have any hands. Okay, yes, the baby didn't have hands. Wow. The baby didn't have legs. There's an ultrasound scan that showed clearly an exposure to a certain medication.
The baby lose their limbs.
Yes, it happens. It's very common. So exposure to some chemicals in pregnant women can be very harmful to them. It can affect their baby in adverse ways. You give birth to a child and then the child is not smart in school. And you think that, permit me to say it in and maybe it's the air freshener that you were using or you were exposed to when you were pregnant that is causing that child to be deficient in a certain way. So long-term exposure in pregnant women to some of these chemicals can be very harmful. Okay,
just as you're speaking about the exposure, there are times that we get certain chemicals, let's say insecticides to kill certain things in our rooms. Is there any advice about how we apply these things, especially people with some underlying conditions, how you apply them to make sure that it doesn't have any negative, because some of them are very, very strong. You know, me sometimes when I spray these mosquito sprays, I leave the room. I don't know whether, is there any way that you can apply them and then you'll not be vulnerable to them?
So like you said, and like you have been practicing, it is very helpful to do that. You know that nowadays the repellents or the mosquito insecticides that they are bringing to the market, though the chemicals, the active ingredients are in, they are now, should I say, in quotes, deceiving us or trapping us with the aromatic components in them. So they are telling you that,
it's sweet-scented.
Yes, but then it also leaves a fresh aroma in your room. Underlying that, they hardly talk about the chemicals that are in them. So like you have been practicing, for example, it is advised that when you spray your room with some of these chemicals, no matter how good scented they are, you should at least give room or leave your room for at least 15 to 20 minutes to give room for the chemicals to their height or the level of their operation to tone down, to settle down. Then you can be free or be free to enter into your room. You understand also that these chemicals, they are supposed to kill them. They are actually poisons that have been sent to kill the animals, and you are not immune to the poisons. The only difference is that research has made them taper it to certain doses that will be harmful to the animals. But with you also, long-term exposure to these chemicals beyond the certain limits can also be equally harmful to you.
All right, so talking about the exposure, how will you advise us, or what will you say that we will learn about how to position our air freshness or the dispensers in our room so that it doesn't have, water? Because I remember that I went to one guy's room one time, I took in the air freshener and all of a sudden I felt nauseous. So how will you tell us about positioning our air freshness in our rooms?
Okay, so I would advise for anyone desiring to use air fresheners in their rooms to to keep it in a space that doesn't directly face them. Okay. If, for instance, like he was saying, you walk into certain people's rooms and then their TV is facing here, they are sitting down watching TV, and then their air freshener is facing them directly. It is advisable for you to keep the air freshener in a space that doesn't directly expose you to the chemicals that are in it.
Okay.
It is better for the chemicals to diffuse or to be diffused into the atmosphere for it to leave the aroma you are looking for than for it to be entering into your respiratory system directly.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I would advise.
All right, so let's go back to the very first question that you mentioned, that you want to see the natural elements in some air fresheners. Do we have some natural remedies or natural things we can use which are not air fresheners in quote, but we can use to scent up our rooms? We have some things that we can place in our rooms that are sweet scented, and these are natural things without any synthetic, chemicals attached to it.
Okay. To answer that question, the best form of natural air freshener, apart from having good ventilation, are the plants and the trees that we have around us.
Okay.
Like you can see in the background,
Yeah.
though this is not a natural plant,
Yeah.
It is very healthy or very good to have something like this in your room or in your space wherever you are. It is very healthy. Apart from using natural plants, in understanding how plants help us, plants are able to, the oxygen or the carbon dioxide that we bring out in excess, that is what plants need. So while we are trying to get rid of the excesses, the plants are taking in those ones. So the plants need our waste, and then we need what they are giving us. The plants give us more oxygen. So having plants in your space is actually very healthy for your body. Good.
We are understanding that we will get to use the air fresheners right, the positioning of them and all of that. You just mentioned. We have some of them also called essential oils, that we have diffusers to diffuse them. Can you relate the same ideology to these essential oils?
Come again.
Like we have a certain class of air fresheners that we have something we call as diffusers that diffuse them. They normally appear in, you see some smokes coming out from the room or a certain container. Can we apply the same rules about positioning air fresheners, the caution we're supposed to take with the same things?
Oh, sure.
All right, I would like to wrap up, but before we go, I would love to ask whether, aside, let's say, people with respiratory, issues, that when you have an allergy, you end up maybe sneezing or coughing, problems with breathing. Are there other symptoms or signs that, long exposure to air fresheners or these chemicals that we use to, spice up our rooms? Other symptoms that can happen on us naturally, that you realize, it's because of this has happening to me.
Oh, okay. So, some other common presentations that you may find with exposure to some of these chemicals are reactions on your skin.
Okay.
It is very common to find people who are exposed to some of these chemicals to have rashes, to have scaly skin lesions. You find them with certain types of dermatitis all over their bodies just because they are exposed to some of these chemicals.
Okay, so aside the sweet sense or the sweet aroma of air freshness, you are saying, if you are to advise somebody, because this also comes at a fee, you need to spend some money to get it. Will I advise that everybody should try to get their spaces smell nice, or we should just, allow the natural flair, natural things to happen? We have the trees planters around our rooms, open ventilations and all of that. Which of them will you settle for? Assuming that money is not an issue, but you just want to be there. Will you rather go in for the air freshener or just allow the natural space to be natural?
For the best option, I would always advise that we go for natural space ventilation, and having natural elements like trees, flowers, sweet scented flowers even around or within our space. And if for any reason at all you would want to use certain air fresheners, you should use them with caution, understanding the chemical composition of them, and then using them wisely.
Okay. All right, so you've heard it all today on Draw Chronicles that we have Dr. Jonathan to explain to us the, possible threats or, problems one can experience when he or she is exposed to air fresheners for a very long time. I'm hoping that the next time you go out there to buy an air freshener, you look for the chemical components of this air freshener to make sure that chemicals involved in these things doesn't have any negative threats to our health. And also, when you get to buy them, they are positioning in your rooms. You may buy the very best one that does not have any synthetic chemical that is dangerous to our health, but the mere fact of how these air fresheners are being dispersed in our rooms, it may bring you certain issues. You may not be allergic, you may not have any respiratory underlying condition out there, but breathing these things directly into our nose can bring to you some repercussions. So you must be very particular about the type of air fresheners you buy. And if at all you want to have the place smell nice and you cannot check the chemical components of the air fresheners in the market, we advise you to resort to the natural remedies. A lot of them are there. Even lemon is a very good one. You can just squeeze the lemon, place it in certain corners in your room. People even use coffee. And then we have these fragrant plants all available you can use in your room. So make sure that you are taking in the good air. We are suffering, we're keeping the earth poisonous to some extent because of our activities as humans. So the already existing air we are breathing is low in quality. Am I lying?
Oh, sure.
So make sure that you take in the very right, air, you breathe the right oxygen in, and if possible, go the extra mile to plant certain trees in your environment to make sure that the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen is effective. Until next time, make sure that you use the right air freshener and you have a healthy life. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share this with your friends and family. Bye-bye.